Swinburne University of Technology.
I'm Professor Josie Arnold, and I'm talking today to Jill Holt for the PhD Hub for Training for Postgraduate Students. Jill is the discipline leader of film and television here at Swinburne, and she's just completed a most fantastic PhD by Artefact and Exegesis. Jill's Artefact is a series of interviews with editors of film, some of them very famous, which she will use in her classrooms in teaching editing. And accompanying that is this really very scholarly work of the exegesis. So we have here the artefact and the exegesis for the artefact and exegesis model of the PhD. I'd like to say, Jill, that in supervising this PhD, I learnt a lot. And I think that's something people don't realise, that the supervisors learn a lot too. But I thought we'd start just talking about how you started on the PhD, then a bit of the journey and a bit about submission.
Okay, well, obviously in finding my supervisor, which I took some time to do, and then I think, you know, very happily settled with doing it at Swinburne, originally at Lilydale, now at Hawthorn, and with yourself, Josie. The focus of the PhD, you advised me to focus it around my practice and my pedagogy. The two do come together. I practice as a screen editor for over 20 years as a freelance editor. I've also been teaching during that time that I was practicing, but then I started to articulate into academia. I did a master's, currently have just submitted a PhD. So I have been working in the position, or within the film and television department for the best part of 10 years. So when it came to doing a PhD, it was pretty obvious I should do it around my practice, so that was great advice. And then around my pedagogy. Like a lot of academics, we're all very busy, I work full time, so when I came to the decision of how to frame it, it was actually, after 2 years of tossing around different ideas, that was very, very gratifying actually to come up with that concept. And yeah, and I had the connections. I mean, I was still very much connected to Australian Screen Editors, as it is. I've been part of the Australian Screen Editors Guild for many, many years. So I had good contacts there. I'm practicing through my teaching. I practice sometimes on the outside by doing, you know, small jobs. But editing is still very much my creative outlet, I guess. So it was great to do a PhD around that.
And you were able to bring together your creative outlet and your creative knowledge with your teaching in a very practical way. So you have this very practical artefact now that you can use in your classroom to help your students to understand the art of editing, which is quite an arcane art, I have discovered.
No, that's true, and it is very difficult to actually teach the more esoteric aspects of editing, like creativity in editing, or teaching creativity, which is part of my theoretical research, I guess, and how you teach creativity in the classroom isn't an easy one to come by. But when it comes to editing, you know, obviously we teach a lot of theory, and we teach some theory and we teach the practical aspects of editing. But when you get to a later stage, and once students start to actually understand the processes of editing, teaching them things like rhythm and pacing and intuition in editing is not something that's easily defined. And I can bring examples into the classroom, and we can also bring guest lecturers in, but that's not always practical. But the focus of the PhD was to interview a number of screen editors. As you said, some are quite famous. There's a cross-section of male, female, gender, age. So some of the more senior editors started on film. And then I had some other editors that actually started in the digital domain, some of the younger editors that I interviewed. So it was interesting cross-section of how people get into the industry, which is always a big thing with students, and also just talking about their practice and then being able to show samples of their work in regards to talking about the specific themes of my research, which were around the art of editing, art or craft, visible editing, the impact of digital technology on styles. There's a big change in editing practice when we move to digital. And these sort of themes came through, and of course talking about intuition and, you know, as I said, those more esoteric aspects of creativity that they were able to talk about, and then through examples of their work, I think it's really a great resource for students.
Well, like all of us, we all have lives as well as being academics, and you had a lot of issues of your life and your academic world. Do you think it helped you that you were doing work that could work for you in your teaching life as well?
Oh, most definitely. And in speaking to you about it and deciding and really focusing the topic, not just around the art of editing, which is where I came from. I mean, my interest in editing came as a practitioner, but my background was in fine arts. So that practical aspect of editing, the creative aspect, is something that attracted me to that practice in the first place. But then being able to put it into a pedagogical context, which is what I do anyway, I teach it, was a great outlet. And then being able to design the artefact around that. I think there are probably other avenues for the artefact. There's a lot of online discussion around creativity and editing, and a lot of, I guess even in the last 5 years, through editors' guilds and specific websites talking about creative practice, Art of the Guillotine, where editors do specifically talk about their practice. But it was a timely thing, I think, in trying to bring that into my teaching. And I did, in fact, sample some of the early cuts to my students to get their responses, and they were really positive, to the point where they were citing the editors word for word, which means that obviously the learning's happening.
So you now have a curriculum for a subject, basically, don't you? Something that you can show your students that they can learn from very first-hand, from people whom you wouldn't necessarily be able to bring into your classroom.
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, having access to guests is, hard to do, but also to bring people in and then really take the time for them to explain, to think about their processes, was what was so great about interviewing these editors. I mean, each interview was 40 minutes to an hour long. Obviously I did quite a bit of research around sort of questionings and around the themes of my research that I wanted to ask them. But then being able to hone those interviews around the main themes, which I intercut each editor. I intercut the 7 editors around the 7 themes, if you like, and which makes it engaging to watch, far more than just having separate interviews. Maybe more engaging than just have someone come in and speak for 30 minutes, walk in and walk out of the classroom. It's something that's there that the students can come back to. And in fact, I already had that response. I could watch that again. And I only showed it once because there was more things that they could pick up. So I think it's positive.
Well, you certainly brought your creative insights and knowledge to making the artefact. But I've always argued and thought that the exegesis also is creative in another way. Do you think that was true for you?
Most definitely. I mean, I guess I felt my skills have always been more so in the audio-visual paradigm. I mean, that's where I've been working all of these years, and writing, of course, is part of my life, but not in a theoretical context. But yeah, being able to put the artefact into context, and then also looking at theoretical, being able to base the artefact and also the theories that I was finding through the interviews, and being able to embed those in theoretical discourse was actually really interesting and rewarding. Always more rewarding when you've got time to do it. But when I actually got into the writing of it, I did actually really enjoy it.
How do you feel about submitting your work for examination?
I guess that's always a difficult question. Well, from yourself, as one of my supervisors, and also Jason Bainbridge, I was given a lot of encouragement, which is really positive. It's very hard to gauge yourself how your material is going to be examined, but I will say I probably had more faith in the artefact because I understand the processes, and I think as a piece of media, well, not a piece of media, there's actually quite a lot of media there. There are 7 sections between 20 and 30 minutes, and when I look at them, I feel quite confident about the content. In fact, I feel very confident, and obviously my technique in putting them together and making them work as entertainment as much as it is giving knowledge is really important in a classroom. So I feel confident about that. The writing I had to work at, and obviously, as you know, I went through many revisions and rewrites. But I think by the end of it, I was feeling much more confident and about the outcome. I also had another editor look at the writing as well, which I think is important. But that part of that was time constraints as well. I really had to get through to the end, and then, just for grammatical purposes and things like that, I think that's...
And also the amount of research that you had to do of an academic nature, which meant that you had to move from your creative knowledge area into your research knowledge area as an academic. So was that a difficult transition, or was that a rewarding one? Or how do you respond?
It was difficult initially, just being able to find I think you said I had to find my voice as an academic writer. But it was rewarding in the end. I mean, I really enjoyed it. And of course, comes back to editing skills. I really enjoyed the process once you started to get the material down, and then I could really hone it and edit it and start to pull it into shape. And that was fun, actually. That was really rewarding. So that's something I'm used to doing, and it's very hard to go hands off and just hand it in, because every time you read it, you want to have another go. But anyway, no, I found it really rewarding and a big learning curve, and it actually gave me a lot of confidence. I think it gives all academics confidence when they have to write from that perspective, from as an academic, and from a research context, how to write and how to research and how to cite, and things that we don't do in our everyday life necessarily. I think it's a great value.
Well, Jill, of course, is under examination as we speak. We're awaiting her results. So, Jill, I commend you on your work again.
Thank you.
And I thank you for coming to this interview.
This has been a Swinburne production.